Employee Discipline. Presented by Christian Roy T. Florida. HR Basics is a series of short courses designed to highlight what you need to know about a particular human resource management topic. In today's HR Basics, we explore employee discipline, discussing the approaches to an administration of discipline. Discipline is a process of corrective action used to enforce organizational rules. Problem employees. Problem employees are most often affected by the discipline system. Fortunately, problem employees represent a small percentage of the workforce in most employees. However, if managers fail to deal with problem employees promptly, work outcomes are often negatively affected. Effective discipline should be aimed at problem behaviors, not at the employee's personality, because the goal is to improve performance. It is often said that 90% aggravation for managers comes from 10% of our employees. That is, a small number of employees create the vast amount of discipline work for managers. Just cause. A disciplinary process can demonstrate to employees the organization's commitment to due process and just cause in employment actions. However, managers may be reluctant to use discipline for many reasons. Organizational culture of avoiding discipline, lack of support by higher management, fear of loss of friendship, avoidance of time loss, fear of lawsuits. The two most common approaches of discipline are positive discipline and progressive discipline. Regardless of approach, certain standards should be applied to the administration of employee discipline. Progressive and positive discipline represents two common approaches to discipline. The positive discipline approach builds on the philosophy that violations are actions that usually can be corrected constructively and without penalty. Progressive discipline incorporates steps that become progressively more severe and are designed to change the employee's inappropriate behavior. Progressive discipline. Progressive discipline refers to a process by which an employee with disciplinary problems progresses through a series of disciplinary stages until the problem is corrected. Most progressive discipline procedures use verbal and written reprimands and suspension before resorting to dismissal or termination. Not all steps in progressive discipline are followed in every case. Certain serious offenses are exempted from the progressive procedure and may result in immediate termination. There are typically 4 steps in progressive discipline. Step 1. Verbal warning. The employee and manager verbally agree as to how the employee must improve. Step 2. Written reprimand. The manager and the employee hold a follow-up meeting and outline a new action plan. Written documentation is kept. Step 3. Suspension. The employee is given a final warning of termination. And finally, Step 4. Termination, where termination or dismissal occurs. With positive discipline, the disciplinary process is not punitive, rather it focuses on constructive feedback and encourages employees to take responsibility for trying to improve their behavior or performance at work. When using the positive discipline approach, managers focus on fact-finding and guidance to encourage desirable behaviors rather than penalties to discourage undesirable behaviors. The key to positive discipline is to help employees identify their problems early and address causes of problematic behavior. Like progressive discipline, positive discipline consists of steps. Step 1. Verbal warning. The employee and manager verbally agrees to how the employees must improve. Step 2. Written reprimand. The manager and employee hold the follow-up meeting and outline a new action plan where written documentation is kept. Step 3. Suspension, where the employee is given a final warning of termination. And finally, Step 4, where the termination occurs. Although it appears to be similar to positive discipline, progressive discipline is more administrative and process-oriented. Following the progressive sequence ensures that both the nature and seriousness of the problem are clearly communicated to the employee. Because of legal concerns as well as justice perceptions, managers must understand discipline and know how to administer it properly. An employee discipline policy must be communicated to employees and should be included in an employee handbook. The best discipline is clearly self-discipline, and most people can be counted on to do their jobs effectively when they understand what is required at work. But for some people, the prospect of external discipline helps their self-discipline. Documentation shapes expectations where coaching alone can be ineffective. Documentation shows an employee their chance to improve, creating a fair work environment. And if the employee doesn't take the opportunity, documentation is the proof that the employer tried to provide the tools and resources for the employee to succeed and is evidence that the termination decision was not arbitrary. Good documentation creates credibility for the employer by showing that employees are treated in a fair and consistent manner. However, some common mistakes in documentation are made, making vague, unclear statements about what the employee needs to do to improve, adding personal attacks or subjective comments, and providing little or no evidence to support decisions to discipline or terminate an employee. Documentation can be simple and quick if employees and managers follow these 3 rules of documentation. Just do it. Know your audience, and tell the story. Training for managers with regard to the discipline process should include detailed hands-on practice in recording and documenting employee performance problems in addition to how to hold a disciplinary meeting. An organization with a sound approach to administration of employee discipline ensures fair and consistent treatment to all employees. That ends my presentation. Thank you for listening.